blessings. Through Our Lady, through our Lord, we prevail. The veterans out there may feel like, when they want they can register for things like the Burn Pit Registry, and they can, make avail of the PACT Act resources. Um, but generally, the feeling will be that they don't have much control. That's true. The system is designed so we have minimum control. Everything is at the disposal of your medical provider or providers. Uh, so you will have to, continue either one, trust everybody, or two, continue to be on them and to watch, everything surrounding your medical care. Watch it like a hawk. So that's that about that. But for that extra medical care, you really got to push. You really do have to push, and then you'll get your consults, and sometimes it's better to go out of town. Uh, that especially if you're going in the same circle of providers. Generally, you're going to find, unless it's a very, very large community, that some of the same medical providers work at or are friends with those who work at the VA. And, you're going to get mixed opinion at the VA, even with the science right in front of the provider. Because people don't like to do anything that sets people up to get CNP, to get veterans compensation. They don't like to. And like somebody even said, the system is kind of set up to break veterans. Unless you have a lot of resolve. Of course, sometimes they're going to try to make you end up with a shrink anyway to rate you, rating wise for PTSD. Last time I read, it's not supposed to be compulsory. I mean, it does assist with the rating process, as far as employability. But yet, it's not supposed to be compulsory. I mean, you may have to see an occupational therapist, but some people try to make it compulsory. Again, it's that stereotype of us. Mentally ill, shell shocked. I'm so tired of hearing that word. So they try to push people in that direction. Sometimes illegally, as I've told the story about that social worker who we saw 3 days ago. He showed up at the VA, eyeballing me 2 or 3 times. I guess at first he thought I didn't recognize him, but I made sure I made eye contact with him as we're going up, so he knew I know who he is. I think it's shameful that people like him work in HUD-VASH. It's shameful. People obviously that judge people by the color of their skin, people that would lie, spread lies. He actually spread lies about my assault. He wasn't even there because he's friends with the people who are friends with the one who assaulted me. Anybody who has a connection like that, if they have a real social work license, they should be put under supervision. But I doubt anything happened. But at least I know his character, and now I know his spirit. Every time he came into my home, I had this feeling that I just couldn't shake. Now I know he's another person that has a demonic stronghold following him. But regarding CNP, you could say that it's meant to be elusive. Um, Conservatives are going to say, oh, because it'll break the system. Nobody can afford to pay too many veterans out, pay a compensation. Nobody can afford to give too much health care. Um, but there's one thing, though, conservatives, they don't like single-payer health care, which is the VA. Besides, the Medicaid system is the largest single-payer health care in the country. They don't like the VA. Conservatives never have. Everything they say to, convince normal, average folks they support the VA. They're behind veterans. It's all tongue-in-cheek. When you dig, like I've been digging the past few years, the support is not there. But you can see that when Veterans Affairs and when VSA and VBA, physicians, providers and researchers, nurses, researchers basically are told not to publish anything without explicit permission. It's kind of Orwellian there. Double speak. Things aren't better until it is actually approved that this research study is true. So for now, we will call it pending research. Well, it's published. It's pending. Holding stuff back like that so veterans are not educated about what's really going on, and so they just get shortchanged, and nobody likes to take welfare, but this is earned. I've met some people that have been in Afghanistan 3-4 times, that when everything was really, really, combative in Iraq, they were there 2 and 3 times. So this is earned. This is what they're earned. What they've earned. This and more. We don't do enough to take care of veterans. Maybe VFW or by their unit, they're pinned with a Purple Heart, and they say, thank you for your service, thank you for your sacrifice. Then nobody hears anything again. I don't think we take Veterans Day far enough. We don't take Memorial Day far enough. When we had a car, my youngest daughter and I would travel to cemeteries everywhere we have family, especially who are veterans, and we would say prayers. Prayers of the dead, prayers for, their souls released from whatever state they're in so they can, find eternal life, eternal bliss, so they'll go into heaven. Every single Veterans Day and Memorial Day we did this. And that's we didn't even go as far as we could have. But a really, really proactive community. You couldn't do this as far as a city, but you could do it neighborhood by neighborhood. One thing that Saginaw does is they put pictures of people who graduate. I don't know the system or anything. I just see them here and there. But neighborhoods could do that for the veterans there. Put up a picture, Memorial Day, Veterans Day. Well, depending on what, category the veteran falls into, put them in your neighborhood. Honor veterans. This is not something to just forget. Sometimes people get so, caught up in the rigmarole of, a neighborhood that, the businesses are closing, gangs are moving in, or somebody's got a dispensary. Sometimes a dispensary can be a good thing for economics, but the problem is if you don't know who's behind it, it might as well be a gang. You don't know who's behind it. but it can be a great thing for local economy, helping multiple sectors, including law enforcement. But the dispensary moves in, it's better than nothing, and it's certainly helpful in the right hands. But people forget about veterans. Marijuana industry didn't. There's tons of us who are doing security. Sometimes, just one or two guys at a dispensary or at a grow, or some people like myself, at one time started companies that specialized in security for this very industry. But I'm not alone. I know others have too. Been stealing my ideas. But I guess it's helpful to hack me and take all the ideas from my company. But they don't have everything. Some stuff is right up here. Just like my cosmetic formulas for my daughter someday. If not by me, somebody else will adopt them and make this company. If I don't ever get the money to do it, someday somebody will. And to get all my formulas, they'll have to take care of my daughters. A lifetime of stuff from 3 different continents regarding cosmetic stuff for men and for women right here. But anyway, so back to focus. So the C&P, is elusive for people, but they've earned it, and they've made great sacrifices, and you can kind of see it's a little bit of symbolism with this, with the Saginaw VA. They've gone through a lot of changes. The administration seems to be, they are reducing staff, it seems like, and the call center, I don't know, it seems like some of the people at the call center, they are really retaliating. Some days you can't get through. But, so it seems like some of the staff are trying to pick up the difference. Which is difficult with shrinking departments. But yet if people know how to, properly manage their labor, it can be done. It all boils down to leadership, even in times of turmoil. It's all leadership. And budgeting of everything, down to the very last cent, the very last pencil, the very last 25 minutes of the workday. And consistency, making sure people follow through. But, the C&P office at the Saginaw VA has moved, I think, 5 times in a year. It's been like 5 times. So, it just speaks volumes. It speaks volumes. They're always moved around. And vets come in, they don't know where they are. They move them here, there, and they immerse them with some of the most craziest. I guess because the airborne burn pit hazards registry. I guess they're kind of merged with environmental health. I guess kind of it makes sense to a point, kind of, but yet not, because comp and pension technically fall under VBA. They're not even a VSA department. So it kind of doesn't make sense. It's kind of mixed. Again, it's because the burn pit registry does, the research was done through EHS, some of it through various, EHS sources. Some of the research I would disagree with, because it's surveys. It's surveys. Self-reported surveys. Some of the stuff out there tries to diminish the things that we've come back with. I saw some research. I don't agree with it. Survey is not solid science. It's a survey. And they didn't even use a 7-point Likert. It's 3 to 5. So It's yeah. Some of the research I've seen, I'm like, no, it's better to go with the NIH research. Um, but even some of that, it's just case studies, pulling various veterans' medical records from the VA. So it's kind of biased science. Some of the stuff from the VA is not all that comprehensive. Because the last thing you want to do if you have a grant from the VA is say, oh, yeah, there's a whole bunch of veterans that are sick because of this and this and this. So we recommend you do this and this. They're going to be like, okay, your grant's done. It's so I would be more accepting scientifically of neutral sources, sources that nobody can jerk around their funding, or they can't be bullied by the VA or by any department because they're independent. Um, so that's what I would say. And I know there's a lot of controversy about independent counsel, independent this, independent that. Well, that's where our system was made, folks. So, whether people on the right want to do away with it or people on the left want to try to, get involved in the process of making these people, that's not the way our system was made. Our system was made with completely independent councils and completely independent investigating bodies like the IG. It's problematic when so many IGs are appointed by one presidential administration. Such as the current one. What, like 20 now? 20 to 25 IGs have been replaced. That's concerning to me. Generally, an IG appointment is cross administration. They're appointed, they stay there till they retire or they're promoted. So that's why I'm neither Republican nor Democrat, but I will never vote Republican again. Democrat, I don't know, probably not. But the direction the Republican Party is going, no, never again. There's no longer the party of Lincoln, no longer. Go Lincoln Project. Go Lincoln Project. Spread your knowledge and spread your concerns throughout the whole country. But back to CNP. So I think it's elusive CNP for people, and the system is designed to break you to get there. And I would really, really wonder how many veterans, around the time they actually get, significant. I mean, because they go hand in hand. It's not just about money. It goes hand in hand. Once you get that CNP, you get that rating, and you get a higher rating, you get more medical care. They're supposed to go together. But yet, being as you have more medical care, you have more issues. Then your MMI, your medical maximum, maximum medical, I don't know what the I is, maximum medical improvement, once you reach your medical maximum improvement, then of course your employability is going to change, so the compensation kicks in. If you're limited more and more and more and more what you can do, the compensation kicks in. And then I think the greatest thing in the world is to start a business. You could have vets with 2 or 3 different businesses. Oh yeah, but they can only do a little bit. Walking is harder now. Can run on a treadmill, but that's it. And can't even do the treadmill longer than 20 or 30 minutes. I mean, that's good. Walking may be hard carrying the weight. I mean, maybe the treadmill is something about the platform makes it easy for them to walk. But it's irrelevant to running a business. Oh yeah, he failed the stress test for his heart. Can still run a business. Veterans shouldn't be pushed to, like Walmart greeter or security guard or, we can do a heck of a lot more than most people around us. So stop limiting us, saying, "Oh, well, you're on vet comp, so they don't care." You know, if they challenge you, okay, you'll go to court. But after the 10-year rule is done, they can't do anything about it. I think 10 years is long enough, to cause permanent issues. So it makes sense. After 10 years, the 10-year rule, they're done. Can't challenge you anymore. It should even be less than that. I would argue 5 years. I've lived for 8 years in the situation we are now, and I can see, there'll be significant long-term damage, socially, emotionally, psychologically, financially. Some damage that will be very hard to come from. Some of them, thank God to my wiring, I still think that I can overcome it. Thanks to my wiring. But not all of it can. So, I think the compensation is important. It shouldn't be so elusive because it's meant to replace the earnings. And I'm tired of conservatives pointing fingers that people are, oh, you're out of your gourd, you're out of your lane. No, you don't have this or this. That's the veterans' right. They know their health better than you do, doctors, nurses. They know their health a lot more. And if they see, I see lots of this and this and this going on, then you're supposed to investigate it, not dismiss them. Or tell them, no, it's not like that. Or try to make it look like it's something completely unrelated. Such as in my situation, keep going towards the liver without considering what caused the liver. I've never had a high-fat diet. I have never been a drinker outside of a college, hijinks. And even that was only a few times in my life. Or military hijinks. Again, only a couple of times of that in my life. Mostly harrying. Most of those times. But anyway, good group of people. Lots of fun. Lots of craziness. But then we move forward back into faith and family and being more serious. I mean, you can still harrier though. You can still harry. Just the crazy hijinks probably should, come to a conclusion. But always remember the gospel. Always remember the gospel. But this I believe the system is made. I don't want to say completely erroneously, because when people use the system correctly, they use all of the resources, and when veterans are treated appropriately, our system is designed to help us be business owners and homeowners, and to be, even if we have challenges or disabilities, to be enabled to work around them, or sometimes go through them, or sometimes they get better and you go over them. But the system is not designed to disable us, dope us up with psychopharmaceutical chemicals, or to, psychopharmaceutical therapy is more disabling than it's enabling. Not that it's bad. Some people, they need it. But I think it always is the first option. What about CBT? And I believe CBT by somebody properly trained. Not some social worker or psychologist that barely has any training. No, I mean somebody very, very versed in it. Just like we hold our physicians to the same criteria, so should we our psychologists, our therapists. And if you're going to take somebody like a social worker who is a clinical, does clinical mental health, hold them to the same standard that you do a professional limited licensed counselor. They have to have this much background. But even sometimes there we fail. Some states have very weak requirements. Oh, you don't have to have that much theoretical framework training, just one or two classes. Well, a good psychologist and a good psychiatrist has a lot of theoretical framework and a lot of theoretical framework application classes. So that's what I would say. And marriage and family therapy, the same holds true. A good marriage and family therapist has more than one or two classes in theoretical frameworks and their applications. And well, we all have my curriculum's slightly different than MFT, but I was actually going to go into MFT, lifelong, either MFT or psychology, or not psychology. I mean MFT or psychiatry, but or clinical psychology. That's why even my chaplain's background, there's a lot of psychological stuff there, a lot of psychologically geared classes. I have a graduate certificate in pastoral counseling. You don't have to be, you don't have to have a halo to help people. And certainly I would be more geared towards the struggling saint than the saint that's one step from being canonized. Because we all know nobody's canonized in this lifetime. So, a former addict who's turned themselves around, yeah, they'll always have that temptation, whatever their addiction is, or somebody that's been in, within reason, in some kind of trouble in the past, maybe juvenile, maybe, a little bit of trouble as an adult, a little bit, again, this is pastoral counseling. Once you get older and you have certain tendencies like anger or outbursts, or you have a problem with, emotional regulation, and you have a problem with relationships, then, people just have to assess you and their wisdom to see if you're fit for this kind of career. But anyway, so people should be well versed. And veterans with the right kind of counseling, I think that veterans who go through the whole PTSD rating thing, I think we could have different outcomes. People don't need to be drugged up. There's so many frameworks out there. CBT, oh, I love CBT. Psychotherapy, there's a lot of stuff out there. A lot of stuff. Solution-focused counseling, oh, I love that. There's a lot of stuff out there to help people. That should be the first stop instead of psychopharmaceutical treatments. And certainly when it comes to PTSD, there's a much different way to approach it, a healing approach that, over time, some people it might take a long time. They may wake up with the night sweats, nightmares. They may have flashbacks where they get dazed during the day. But it may take years. Other people with the right therapy, with the right healing environment, it might be quicker. There's great things that have been found about marijuana. It seems to kick the healing, psychological healing, proverbial gears. It kicks them in motion. There's a lot to be done there. A lot. And more to be researched about, the things that Timothy Leary said, only applying to marijuana. These drugs, they heal, they they open up a different part of the mind. They allow us to see reality from a different way. Um, of course, that was about acid, but you get the point. These altered states, ayahuasca. Of course, you can't get it around here, but there's something to be said for altered states. When you go to the Eucharist, in my experience, it can almost be an altered state. It really can. When you're in that zone and you're directly communicating and you're looking at yourself and you're praying and whether it's asking for guidance or asking for deeper relationship, it can almost be an altered state. And I never forgot the pulsing that we had that day when we were saying Rosary, Chaplet of Divine Mercy, and we had a worship session in front of the exposed Eucharist, and it was pulsing. Could feel it like in waves. Sacred Heart's in there. But again, these type of frameworks, they're what vets need, not tons of drugs. And if the system is used correctly, I think we'd see very different results. I knew a veteran once, if he gets mad, then his family will talk to his doctors and they up his medication. He's like, yeah, so I'm not allowed to get mad or irritated. I have to go outside or, take a ride. That's probably not the way we should treat our vets. And that being said, what's wrong with bringing some Christian therapists on board? Oh, well, the VA is not a religious organization. Just because somebody is a Christian and they prefer to treat, solution-focused Christian counseling, even from, a Catholic perspective is only slightly different. Only slightly. They just, instead of just focusing on Scripture and a relationship with Christ, it's sacramentalized. The sacraments are introduced. And Catholic-focused, or Catholic solution-focused counseling is very, I would say very, very similar to Christian-focused of the same. And I asked for counseling for us, everything we've went through, but I wanted somebody who's, Catholic or even Christian. I was denied. They said, oh, we don't do that here. What, so everybody at the VA are atheists? Well, you can go see the chaplain. I am a chaplain, and we're only trained to a certain degree, to a certain, actually it's a bad choice of words, to a certain level when it comes to counseling. Only to a certain level. You may have a pastoral certificate, such as me, a pastoral graduate certificate. This is not undergrad stuff. Yet still, you're only trained to a certain level. Not like somebody who, specifically their entire program has been focused on clinical praxis. Chaplain is not that way. So anyway, I think that this PhD, or so she said, sounded like a PhD to me. I didn't hear any theory coming out, nothing, and it was all negative. So definitely not a practitioner of positive psychology. But yeah, I was denied when I asked for a chaplain of faith. Or not a chaplain, a counselor of faith. I was denied. I'd love to talk to a chaplain, but the thing is, when the chaplain's approach is different. Even a chaplain with a PhD in pastoral counseling, their approach is different. And I've never heard of a VA chaplain having regular appointments for counseling with somebody. Matter of fact, I've never even heard, even premarital, I've never heard of it. VA chaplains, they don't do weddings. They don't do funerals unless requested. Um, yeah. So anyway, this lady's supposed to be one of the directors of mental health. I'm not impressed, not at all. The theories that I threw at her, she didn't know what I was talking about. So I'm like, either she's fake or she went into psychology just so she could be a bureaucrat, a high-level bureaucrat. And she's probably forgotten everything she learned in school. Yeah, I wasn't impressed. But, even a researcher's going to know the frameworks I threw at her. But anyway, if the system was used differently, veterans would do better. If the CNP system was more fair, they stopped, spending millions every year on paying a law firm to tell veterans no. Actually, I should say law firms. The VA administrative law judges and the appellate court judges. This is a giant law firm that taxpayers are paying for. Most people don't even know. Most people don't even know. I'm not going to say anything against people earning a living, especially serving their country. Yet when your sole focus of your job is to tell people no, I don't know. Especially when the no is like the vast majority of claims from veterans are, like I said, my research has shown jumps from like between 10 to 30% most, which is up to what, $500? No, $500 to $700 a month, and they're paying lawyers millions of dollars a year, plus government pensions for those who've retired. It makes no sense at all. Makes no sense at all. And thank God I'm no longer a conservative. I sit where the Holy Spirit tells me to sit. Because, conservative, all they want to do is say no, no, no. Cut, cut, cut. Oh, give control back to the people, which is not the people. They're giving it back to 1% corporate blue blood America. Yeah, the Republican Party the past 10 years, I will never go back there. I'm never going to be a Democrat again either, but definitely never a Republican. I do not like what I have seen at all. Which say they're empowering people in small business. They're not. They're closing them up. They're not. It's great to own a business and even to be a millionaire. Hey, that's great. But you got to remember, you're intrinsically tied to the community. That's where your money comes from. And if you're, only giving back a tiny, tiny bit, I don't think that's right. I look upon that as the same as any other feudal society. Only now the patron wears a suit and they drive a Maserati. They're not living in a big castle on the hill. Patron is a patron. I believe in businesses that, that they're into a dynamic with the community. There's some businesses out there like that. Wendy's, McDonald's, Kroger, Walmart, Meijer. These companies, yeah, they've done very well, but they're still bound to the community. They have so many programs out there to help people, so much stuff. And they do stuff even when people work for them still to help them out. 20 years ago, people were battling just for good medical care. One of my cousins had to go through that battle. Things are different now, 20 years later. For some people, sadly, it's too late. But at least it's not for another generation. People have tuition assistance. They have managerial programs. They have programs where they give out gift cards to people. They have programs where they help feed the homeless. That is how corporate America is supposed to run. Just bound to the community, the kind of contract or covenant that can't be broken.